we will talk about the importance of the blue natural capital with other major speakers. So this is the panel. And with you will be Rafael Sardà, Senior Scientist and Spanish CSIC. Please, Rafael. Bienvenido. Gracias.
Gracias a ti. Thank you very much, and welcome to be here. First of all, I think I need to say that on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of the two outstanding persons that I'm going to introduce right now, thank you for inviting us here. So I don't want to spend 1 second more just to bring into the stage with me to Minna Epps, which is the Global Ocean Director of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. As you know, one of the most important organizations about protecting nature, and Alessa Berg, which is the Chief Executive Officer, a very young person, but Chief Executive Officer of top-tier impact. So thank you for being here with me. And I don't know if we have the title. The title of our talk is The Importance of the Blue Natural Capital, but I think that Carlos just said about that. So I will add a little bit more on that, and I will say the importance of the blue natural capital for the aspirational blue economy. And let me just give two big messages. They know me because I'm always giving messages to them. And we are going to talk about a different kind of jargon: nature-based solutions, nature positive, nature investments. And when you go into nature positive, in a table like this one, the contrary of positive shouldn't be negative, but shouldn't be realism or realist. And the first message is clear: we are killing nature. We are degrading nature. We need to know that, because still we have 5 years to go, but we are killing nature. That's the first reality. We need to, at least this is what I would say. And the second one, this morning Sylvia Erle was saying the new blue economy. It was not saying the blue economy, it was saying the new blue economy. Well, the blue economy is an aspiration. We don't have a blue economy today in the world. And I think that we need to say that. People need to win the right to be part of the blue economy. And that's something that you need to say a lot of things about it. And I heard Carlos right now with these 4 pillars of what is going to be the new blue economy. And some of these pillars are not compatible by definition. So that's another thing that we don't have time to go. But some of these pillars are not compatible by definition. But it's something that we need to construct. And we are here just to talk about the blue natural capital. So my first question for both of you is basically the same. Well, our table is the importance of the blue natural capital. So they know me also because I try to pass also the message that we need new narratives. And I'm just on shape that. So construct a narrative. So introduce yourself and also construct a narrative about this importance, which is going to be difficult because Carlos said it. But anyway, from your point of view of conservation or impact investment, you can say something to them.
Happy to go ahead. Well, guys, when something is so naturally obvious, like the value of nature, pun intended, the narratives are endless. So I would like to argue that actually it's very simple to construct plenty of solid narratives about it. And I will give you one of the narratives that I like to use. This is a systemic narrative. I have a background academically in governance design, so I like to look a little bit at the systemic angle. Now, question for you guys: who is ready to dive into a systemic narrative for blue capital today? Please raise your hand. Yes? Half? Really? Someone else? All right. Good. So I want to talk about the obsolete economic paradigm that we are changing at the moment, because based on this narrative, it's very simple. There is one thing that we all share, and there is one thing that is constant in life, and that one thing is change. Every second, every day, every year, change is a constant. We just heard on the previous panel from Carlos that pretty much everything of how the blue economy and oceans are legislated upon today comes from hundreds of years ago, the Justinian Code. And in fact, Carlos shared with me yesterday how there is this rule about how every nation state owns the first 3 miles of their coast, and then beyond that, it's nobody's land. Why the first 3 miles? Because cannons at the time, cannons shot for 3 miles ahead. Now, I don't know about you guys, I have never seen a cannon in action at this point. I have seen cannons in history museums and in historical setups. So this is actually the constraints, and I could quote endless examples like that, since I work in impact and climate investments. There are endless examples that show how obsolete this economic paradigm that we still operate in is today. And we are changing that, because through the company that I have built in the past 5 years, I now know for a fact, a measurable fact, that there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of investors, entrepreneurs, professionals all around the world. We are present in more than 50 countries through our members, who are every day investing in, building, and operating in line with the economic paradigm that is coming, that aligns with the inevitable of life, which is change. So with my company, I see across all our city chapters around the world, we run investment events on impact, climate, sustainability every single day, pretty much every week. We are present during conferences like Davos, COP, climate change, and I can tell you that it is changing, whether we like it or not. And so from my perspective and from the perspective of this narrative that I'm bringing to you guys today, the question is, who will be the winners who are aligning with the changes and aligning with that movement and being ahead of these changes that we are rolling out? We are at the forefront of rolling out, and everybody in this room today, one way or the other, is part of that as well. And the losers who will be left behind. And I think we have fascinating examples that are quantified in financial terms at this point from the past 5 years and everything we have measured of how being proactive and at the forefront of this change translates into performance for funds and for companies, which I will get into later. Thank you.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here, really, and I'd like to thank the One Ocean Foundation, and also congratulate you on the name, because there's One Ocean, it's the global ocean, and I don't know how many times I've been correcting that. So my name is Minna Epps, I'm director for IUCN's Global Ocean Program. How many here have heard about IUCN? I can't see, I'm in the spotlight, so I can't see any hands up. Well, I don't see any, so maybe it's the world's best kept secret. So the IUCN stands for the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It was established in 1948. It is the kind of global authority on protecting nature. It's very diverse in its membership base, and that's why it has this amazing convening power. It's comprised of 200 state agencies, 1,500 civil society organizations, and also indigenous people's communities. And every 4 years, we get together for the International IUCN World Conservation Congress. And that's where we shape and set the agenda to how we can live in harmony with our planet. So, as our very distinguished panel before us talked, I'd like to copy, if I like, the Honorable Leon before, because he really introduced this point of departure. So the point of departure is really important. And for me, and I hope for everyone in this room, it's really about the ocean is the most important place on this planet. So I know Ralph Chami was kind of pressing previous speakers to say, like, give me the quick, the return on investment. And for someone like me who spent my whole life, professional life in conservation, I'm speechless, because I'm coming from the complete other side. But we know we need to bridge that gap. So if I can, just very quickly, on the blue economy, and Honorable Sylvia Earle, what she said today, I like to introduce another terminology, which is regenerative blue economy. We all talk about the ocean economy or the blue economy, and I think in the beginning they were distinguishing between them. But it's not all marine economic activities that goes on the water or in the water. and it's mainly been focusing on, people can think about extractive industry, fishing, etc. But we need to think about much more creative and curiosity, because by the end of the day, we need all sectors, but it's going to be the business community that is actually going to catalyze the next generation of innovation and how we can work with that. So if it's the largest economy or the 8th largest economy, worth trillions, what are they? So together with other stakeholders, we put something forward called the Ocean Breakthroughs. Is directly related to using how the solutions that the ocean is providing to reduce the 35% emission gap. So we identify 5 sectors that actually can have that transformative pathways. So it was shipping, tourism, but also the blue foods, so the fisheries, aquaculture, renewable energies, and of course, the one that's least invested in, and that's the blue natural capital, so marine conservation, and that's what we are leading on to really make sure that that's where the investment goes. Thanks.
Okay, great. No, I have it. I already have it here. Yeah, they put me there. The issue is that if you want to be happy, you need to recognize that if you want to be happy, you are not happy. If the ocean economy is the same as the blue economy, what kind of aspiration we have? So that's an issue. I have a lot of discussions with people about the semantics of this issue, but I think that is really important that there is a difference between what we have today and what it should be. I know that the watch, we are under pressure here, totally under pressure because we have a watch over there. And they took us 10 minutes, but we are going to add 10 minutes to what we have here. Right? So that's the point, right, exactly. So a question for you, because I'm a scientist. I'm doing science since 40 years ago. And one of the things that it has been not very well named until the last table, it's nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions. When we talk about the Conference of Climate and the Conference of Biodiversity, you know, climate-adopted solutions must co-deliver to nature. So better just to go for nature-based solutions. You were one of the institutions, if not, you were the first to use this term. And you came up with a standard. And I was very curious because we are trying to develop a standard for ecosystem-based management. Why you work with this standard? And tell us about the standard on nature-based solutions.
Great, thank you so much. Well, first of all, we need to distinguish. It's true that we did coin the term nature-based solutions. And I want to distinguish between nature-derived and also nature-inspired, because there's lots of solutions that might be inspired of nature, or they might be, derived or based. And the nature-based solutions, I have a little bit of a spoiler. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. So the first time I actually introduced this, I had a gentleman in the audience saying, I was doing this 40 years ago, or 4 or 5 decades ago. But it is that collective knowledge, because IUCN is 75 years old. We've been working in restoration and protecting, and putting out also the best science and best practices. So, but we do need a global standard. So what it is, the nature-based solutions is a way to kind of tackle environmental and societal challenges. So it has 8 criteria. So it's not nature-based solutions for climate change or nature-based solution for biodiversity. It looks at a very holistic approach. And one thing that's also key, so you can use that as a benchmark. One thing is key is that one of the criteria is that it has to be economically viable. Not investable, but economically viable. Another key point, what I think is a tremendous value, is you have to balance trade-offs. And that's what we have to do in all of the work that we do. So balancing trade-offs. And what we've seen now is that multiple countries are using this. We're using it for most of the overseas development assistance. So one thing I learned when I introduce things to non-ocean audiences is that you just put this little magic word in front, blue. And then, so blue finance, blue nature-based solutions. So there is a big uptake on the nature-based solution, and it was developed over a couple of years. It builds on decades of research. I think 800 individuals were part of it. And I think whatever we do it in partnership. And that's when you get better traction and, get that really adopted. And then we worked similar. We are also standard setter for the green list. So not just, which is a word and sensitive for marine protected areas. And now we work to get that into the policy languages. So you have a benchmarking because you need your real boots on the ground, based on science, so the scientific guidelines is really key. So that's really taken off, but it's multiple decades of work.
I know that the standards are very important because everyone can understand more or less the same and know that the others are doing more or less the job in a similar way. Let's go with impact investment now. And I'm also a professor in the university. I need to compete in my classes with impact investment issues because it's a hot topic right now in business schools. And impact investments in the digital world or in the mobile world or in all these worlds, it's a lot of people move there. Impact investment in nature is less appreciated. So why we have so small impact investment in these particular topics? And how do you see the evolution of this impact investment in comparison with other funds that are done, but other things that theoretically could be less important than nature?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to understand the genesis of how and why we're calling it impact investing. Because historically, up until about 5-6 years ago, impact with investing was typically associated with microfinance, emerging markets, and not losing money rather than targeting a certain IRR and a certain financial performance along with clear impact metrics. So as it started to shift into impact, defining any kind of positive innovation, so positive innovation that has through technology, through for instance, nature-based solutions, which I will go into after describing this. It's interesting to hear how the genesis of the word happens because we are using it like that, and yet it's nothing new, as you were just sharing right now. But with impact, it's important to understand that it has become an umbrella term for anything that is positive investing, sustainable investing, climate-friendly investing. And quite frankly, I don't know about you guys, but to my point about the economic paradigm that is currently changing, I have no interest in living in a world where I have to say sustainable in front of investing. Unsustainable investing, really? Are we still in that place? So actually the mission of Top Tier Impact, my company, is to take impact and sustainability into the mainstream for how investments are being made and how companies are being built and operated, which again is a big wave here. So I wanted to introduce impact in itself because, as I'm sure you've seen in your classes and in general, it gets a little bit confusing and there are endless frameworks out there. Now, when it comes to nature, this is exciting. What I see with nature at the moment is what I saw with climate investments, both climate tech on the early stage, but also private equity. I started my career in private equity at Blackstone, then I moved to venture capital, then I moved into this. So I've seen the different parts of the capital stack and how they relate to clean tech, to climate technology, now nature-based solutions. And actually, I think we're just in the beginning, in the incubation phase of what will become a big asset class. We heard before the comparison to real estate, which I think is particularly appropriate because as I started talking about nature investing a while ago now, the first analogy that came to my mind actually was a store of value, an asset analogy, but actually the fungibility is not there as it is with gold or with crypto for that matter. So real estate is a very interesting comparison. It makes sense from a lot of different angles, like when you're looking around it. And actually, when we think about where the world is going with the unarguable science that we briefly touched upon before, you understand that in terms of asset appreciation, we are talking about a considerable upward trajectory here. And so what I want to say in terms of your question about why is it so small, we're just getting started. We're just getting the rules of the game clear here. The terminology, the educational understanding, we're starting to embed it in a few frameworks, but it's really early days. And what I see talking about this topic at forums like Davos, Climate Weeks, tech conferences is that there's still a little bit of that confusion that there was with climate investing a few years ago. but it's starting to change. It's really changing faster than I've seen it changing for sustainability and for climate. So the bottom line is, it is early, it is small, but it's changing very rapidly.
Okay, so no. Now the clock is 0, but we have +10. I'm guess that we have plus 10. You want to respond? Okay, of course, yes, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. No, you're absolutely right. It's moving really, really fast. And most of the ones who reach out to me in contact are impact investors. They all want to know, do you have any investable projects, etc. And it's really been a long journey, and that is the problem. We talk about the missing middle, but the size. It's so odd. For a conservationist, a project with 3 to 5 million, it's a big project. But as you go and scale up. And it's really interesting because everybody seems to be obsessed with scaling up, And I was wondering, how do you, or the impact investment, how do you ensure that it's a positive correlation as you scale up financially, you're also scaling up with the impact so that is not lost? And again, we've heard a lot of interesting panels this morning, and I think a lot of it focused on ocean literacy. And even I'm sure you would see a change in the impact investment community in terms of, 9 out of 10 investors say that they want to invest in the ocean, but they don't know how to do it. So it's a lot of that kind of ocean literacy. But, how do you see the kind of future? Because it's growing so fast. Is it a matter of going slow to go fast again? Or where do you see the trajectory? And particularly, I'm interested in the impact, the nature positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll dive straight into a crux that I see here, and then maybe talk about a few areas of ocean investing and why there is a problem. So I think that the crux that we're facing today is something that was briefly touched before as well in the panels. We are looking, when it comes to nature-based solutions and nature investments, the way I see both corporates and asset managers approaching it is through the fruits, the sort of like utility of the assets, as opposed to the asset value itself. And so I heard a term yesterday from Ralph, the regulating aspect of nature, which in my view is just the balance that nature brings to our ecosystems, right? Talking about change and evolution, nature evolves in ecosystems, not as individual species. That was a mistake in the theory of evolution that we heard hundreds of years ago, which meanwhile has been readjusted and corrected. No, we don't evolve as a single species, right? Which seems to be how, again, our incentives in our systems operate upon. We evolve as balanced ecosystems. And so there is a crux to figure out, which a lot of us are on today, and that is the balance between the asset value in itself and the balancing effect, the regulating effect that it gives, and the utility and what comes out of it. And so this goes into regenerative agriculture, actually, and carbon markets, and how currently, when we're thinking about on a 20-year time horizon, what is the performance of certain nature assets, we think about it that way. So I think this is a crux to acknowledge that is being talked about and addressed. When it comes specifically to ocean investing or blue economy as opposed to green economy, I have to say, and perhaps it goes a little bit against of a comment I heard before, which is, we say in the blue economy space, it's tougher than in the green economy space. What I see is actually there's a little bit of an amplification of the issues that are present in the green economy space. For instance, the legislation across different countries and the sanctioning needs for products. So for instance, for early stage blue economy investors that I have spoken with over time, the problem of finding technologies that can be scaled across multiple markets, it's much more present than it is in the green economy space or anywhere in climate tech, for that matter. And this actually is a matter of international coordination for standards. So there are problems of that kind, problems with data and monitoring, because we don't see to the extent that we see today on land in the green economy what happens, right? Like oil spills, like whatever it is that happens out in the ocean, we have less ways to monitor, less incentives to monitor it. And then the other thing is, at least from how I look at it, there are very distinct areas of investing as opposed to more harmonization. So the way that shipping and the maritime sector works being quite different from fisheries, being quite different from, so there's kind of like a more separation between how investors refer to these areas through the frameworks that they're used to. At least these are some of the complaints I've heard.
Yeah, let's change a little bit. I'm curious about what I'm going to ask to you about what is the International Union of Conservation Nature saying about that. But it's about the role of the blue natural capital for this aspirational blue economy, and especially in Europe. In Europe, what has changed since 2015 here or 5 is that we have a much more better policy. And in Europe, we have something that describes the state of the environment, the ocean environment, which is called good environmental status. We didn't hear anything in the entire day about good environmental status. But this is something that every company should accomplish. You cannot do activities in the ocean if you don't have a good environmental status. Per definition, we should have this good environmental status in 2020. We don't have it. So what is your idea of passing the message to people about that we have a policy that obliges to every actor acting in the sea, and that policy should be worldwide policy because it's a fantastic policy by definition. What should be the narrative to pass to the people about, okay, we have that, so you need to contribute to that. If you do not contribute to that, you are not part of the blue economy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do think that you raised a very important thing, which is really about the power of definition and who holds that power of definition and who's the arbitrary to can actually tell you what activities can or cannot go on in the ocean. So I would also start first with like a taxonomy, like the EU has a taxonomy for the blue economy, and be clear on what is not part of the blue economy, like deep seabed mining. That is a false narrative that we need to change. Now we're saying, oh, we need to go and mine the deep ocean, because we want to have the green transition. I mean, that's just paragraph, because we know that doesn't make financial sense, certainly doesn't help our triple planetary crisis that we have. So I think one side you have to say what's not part of the blue economy, and also if it doesn't have a social license, then I would also like to talk directly to the investors. I mean, if you talk about geoengineering, for example, it's not regulated enough, there's not been enough R&D going into it, etc. And a lot of these activities are not regulated. So I think the bigger role is to have global standard of best practice, sure, but also the regulation and look at what are the enabling conditions. And then what we then try to do, because there's been many different definitions of blue economy. So what the IUCN did recently, we did like a mapping exercise, and we were talking about towards a regenerative blue economy. It doesn't mean, that's the aspiration, right? It doesn't mean that everything has to be that, but realizing that it's a big spectrum. And then having this framework, and how do you work with different countries? And, there's not one fits all model. So you have to be that lean. But I think one thing that we haven't really mentioned, which is, blue justice. We have to be inclusive, make sure that it's well representative and, a level playing field. So I don't know if that really answers your question in terms of IUCN's view, but we're it's a journey. And I think sustainability, we are definitely past. We need to go beyond that.
Okay, we are running out of time almost, with 2 minutes. So very quickly, another question for you, and you can just finalize then later with 30 seconds more. Very quickly, in 2030, United Nations says that we should be nature positive. Do you think that you have arguments to convince people that we need to move into nature positive issues in 5 years?
I have a quick one-word answer, yes.
Okay, great. That's a very, very positive finalization. Yeah. So 30, we have 15 seconds each one. The yes was great if you want to add something, but in your case, what you will say?
I would say the narrative, we know that UN Secretary General, he's basically said it's a life support system. So I don't think we need a better argument. But I like to say that when we look at nature positive, let's talk about the ocean pathway to nature positive, because I think it could be quicker and simpler. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. I think it was great. They are happy now. They are clapping, so they are happy. Thank you very much for allowing us to just talk about the importance of blue natural capital. Great.
Thank you very much.